So I'm Brynn Saito, and I'm a faculty member here in the MFA program, and yeah, I think that's it. And before we start, I would just want to acknowledge we're gathered this evening on the traditional homelands of the Yokuts and Mono peoples. And I want to say a few thank yous. First, thank you to Dr. Bynan, our wonderful chair. Thank you for being here, John. Thank you to our dean, Nora Chapman, for all of her supports. Thanks as well to our staff, our fabulous staff in the English department. Hello. Lisa Galvez and Jefferson Beavers, as well as Taylor Seals and Angelina Leaños, our fabulous editorial assistants. Thank you to the Fresno Poets Association and the donors for supporting our events this evening. And a quick note that our next event will be the first year students reading at an event called Rough Drafts on November 17th. So that's one of our favorite events of the year, so please join us for that. It's in ED 172. Lastly, we have books. The authors have books for sale. They'll be selling and signing books after the event this evening, so please stick around. And I think we have 5 of us tonight reading. I'm going to start us off, and then Brenna, and then we'll play a short documentary about Rod Gerard, and then Venita, if she comes. Hello, is Venita here? Maybe Stephen will be going. Venita and or Stephen, and then Stephen and or Venita will close us out tonight. Okay, so I'm gonna read. I haven't had a chance to read from The Gate of Memory, which came out this spring. We haven't done a reading here in Fresno, so I thought I'd read a couple paragraphs from the introduction, and then a couple of poems. So The Gate of Memory is poetry by 66 poets who are all descendants of the Nikkei wartime incarceration from both Canada and the United States. And Brandon Shimoda and I edited the anthology, and it took us about 5 years, I think. It was definitely a labor of love. And so this is from the introduction that we co-wrote, but really Brandon wrote because he's a better prose writer, so he mostly wrote the whole thing. So this is really so much of his words here. It feels like many lifetimes ago, and as recently as yesterday, that our ancestors, our parents and grandparents, and great uncles and great grandparents, as well, our aunts and uncles, great aunts and great uncles, approaching 150,000 of them, were, during the Second World War, criminalized by the governments of North America, Canada, and the United States, dispossessed of their belongings and livelihoods, forced from their homes, and exiled and incarcerated in prisons and concentration camps across the continent. The story of the mass incarceration of Nikkei people, the Japanese and Okinawan, American and Canadian people, has been told many times, in many ways, in many settings, under many circumstances. Yet it feels like as though the reality of it has not been liberated, or not entirely, from a kind of obscurity that requires the story to be constantly retold. And so many lifetimes ago, because that is how incarceration, the hard fact of years encircled by barbed wire and wilderness, is often imagined and expressed, including within families of people who were there, including by survivors who are, as of now, passing away, as a memory that has become increasingly difficult to retrieve and re-inhabit. Many of us grew up in the illusion of that distance, the memory shared through stories, materialized in fragments, or like dusting fog off a photograph. Many of us grew up with an awareness of what happened. The story was a part of our lives, was talked about openly, and shaped our understanding of the world and how it worked. The meeting ground between knowledge and unknowing formed a piece of the heart of the post-incarceration community, in which the wartime experience, in the ways it had been received or not, in the ways it had stayed remote or become a part of the environment, still being discovered, is still being felt. And so yesterday, because awareness and understanding cannot always guard against the forces of traumatic experience and the systems of oppression that form the source and scaffolding of that experience, the components that constitute the incarceration and that maintained it continue to proliferate. We see it in the anti-Asian racism, anti-immigrant legislation, migrant detention, family separation, in generalized pervasive politics of fear, in the internalization of an enforced contest with one's citizenship and sense of self, in the funding and application by our governments of these same racial, imperial, colonial, carceral logistics on indigenous land and in the streets of the Americas and around the world. We are made to see it whenever incarceration or the camps are invoked by politicians or in the media as an example, a metaphor, or a threat. And we can see these forms of oppression being resisted in the continuously evolving response to these injustices in acts of vigilance, protest, repair, in intergenerational and intercommunal solidarity, in storytelling and art making and writing, including poetry. In putting together this anthology, we accumulated 1,000 pages of poetry. In this way, poetry is the community. The sheer volume struck us as both miraculous and heartbreaking, that one of the after effects of incarceration could be several generations of descendants overwhelmed with such feeling and the inclination to translate it into literature, that an after effect of trauma is the birth of a poet. We could not have imagined the extent to which the afterlife was populated by so many poets, reading the past into the present into the past, and possibility into the future. And I want to read you a couple of those poems, a couple of those poets. The first one is a poet named Sid Wesley, who lives in the Bay Area. I believe Sid is a Yonsei fourth generation BK poet. This is called Elegy Attempts. I pick up my pen and put it down again. Who died and what am I trying to do? I have killed many plants. I am notorious for overwatering. I am learning new words every day so I can say things that some people have already known. If my grandmother's ashes are in an urn in Piedmont, can I find my way back and how so? Yesterday, another trans woman died and I didn't cry until I couldn't write a poem about it. There's a word for this in Japanese. It does not translate. I will not try. I drove 7 hours north of Marin to confirm something my grandmother once told me. The sky felt low and suffocating. I thought I could not last 2 days there. How much violence does it take to make me a man? I am learning. After Pulse, I did not write for many months. I just did things I thought were stupid, like yoga. I am not a good child, never was what I was saying. I was named after a man I did not know. I am turning into him. Is this a better elegy? When my mother wanted a girl, I cut off my hair and left the house. There are memories I will not write down. Will they die when I do? I really hope so. Can I write a poem about my grandmother without mentioning internment once? There is no resurrection. I have given her dresses to Goodwill. In the morning, I will climb out of my bed and water my 5 plants. How insufferable can I get? She did not know I kissed girls. Would she have tried to leave the page? I press hard to the paper until my hand begins to hurt. Yeah, shout out to Sid. And I'll read one more for you. This is a poem by Troy Osaki, and thank you for listening and for being here. Venita's here, everybody. Venita's arrived. Hello. This is one of our favorite readings to get to read with each other and for each other as faculty. We really do love each other, which is really awesome. Thank you. And rare, I must say, right? Just really, really enjoy your colleagues' presence. So I'm excited to hear you all read this evening. So yeah, I'll close with Troy's poem. My grandparents planted a pear tree in the backyard of their home in northeast Portland. When my grandpa asks, "Say, how many jars do you think we have left?" my grandma replies, "Gosh, at least 6 or 7. They offer me a pint of slices they canned months before. Tell me how canned pears last years beyond expected. I trust what they know about preservation is airtight. When the season is kind, they gather a bundle of barrel-shaped fruit, bury a handful of wedges beneath 2 splashes of water, and sprinkle in sugar before sealing them snug. I'm not surprised my grandparents know preservation like a past life, like they've practiced for centuries now. For as long as I've known them, they've kept this family alive. Once, before tending to a backyard full of fruit, my grandpa was a school teacher. In his first interview, he was told the school board chairman doesn't like Japs. And rather than let the corners of his body bruise like a rotting peel, he replied, "Is that right, you say? He doesn't like Japs. Well then, I'll take the job." Before that, my grandma was snatched from her family's grove, boxed away in a warehouse made of barbed wire. She found sugar in whatever wicked shelf America shoved her in. And still, when the war ended, it didn't disappear. Years later, in a schoolhouse hallway, a boy who smelled of famine yelled, "You must be mad because your country lost." And I don't know if any word has been invented for that kind of patience, to soothe a rage that would burn 1,000 acres of orchard if given the chance. Maybe miracle is the closest I can think of. Maybe my grandparents are so good at not giving up, they gain another life whenever someone fails to poison the patch of soil they breathe on. Maybe in a past life, they were blooming pears that outlived the coldest winter. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do a tech switch here, and I'm going to introduce my wonderful colleague, Brenna Womer. Brenna is a neurodivergent prose writer, poet, and artist. She is also proudly queer, Latine, and child-free. Brenna is the author of the mixed genre collections Unbrained and Honeypot, as well as the chapbooks Cost of Living, Atypical Cells of Undetermined Significance, and most recently, Dear Mom, forthcoming in January. Fantastic, yay. Please join me in welcoming Brenna.
Thank you, Brynn, so much for your amazing host skills, for being willing to do that. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm always really excited and humbled to read with my incredible colleagues, who I love very, very much. And I love seeing, our students here. And yeah, cool. Okay. So if you've had a class with me, you probably know that I'm an only child. That features heavily into my writing. And this piece is about the complications of remembering when there isn't anyone else who remembers things the way you do. And this was published yesterday in Blackbird. Yay! Thank you. They're a paying venue, so I'm stoked. Okay, so this is called Only. When your boyfriend tells you he believes in aliens, he says it's because on a dark car ride home from his grandparents' house as a child, he and his little sister, together in the back seat, saw a UFO. It hovered for a moment there in the night sky before curving away like a Nike swoosh, bright into the black night. I turned to her like, and he makes a surprised face, open-mouthed, wide-eyed, and she said she saw it too. When you finally get the conversation you've been hoping for with your parents, not a text or an email, but over the phone, voice to their 2 voices, it's been 9 months since the 3 of you, the only 3, stopped playing family. They're angry about the way you remember things, that sometimes you write down your remembering and give it to the world. Lies, half-truths, fraudulence, filth. When you tell them that sometimes you don't want to keep on living something you've never said out loud to them before, it stays that way. Still, somehow unspoken, though you know you just said it. Felt the words choked out of your own thick throat, but they're gone like air and your parents keep talking. You were such a happy kid. What trauma? All you remember is the bad. What trauma? When your boyfriend tells you he believes in aliens, there's a plastic spaceman projector casting swirls of changing color and pinpricks of light across the walls and ceiling. You're sipping your first ever buzzball over ice in his bed, and the jalapeno spice warms the back of your throat. The pineapple sweet makes your teeth ache. You've been no contact with your parents for 2 weeks, and the last thing your mother said to you was in the subject line of an email with no body. You're free of us. You won't hear from either of us again. You never quite figured out how to be yourself without hurting them, how to let them be themselves without hurting you. If I'd been the only one to see it, I probably would have convinced myself that it didn't happen, that I made the whole thing up. I didn't break anything. Thank you. So I have 2 flash pieces, and that was also technically flash, under 1,000 words. Right now, in both my workshop and Form and Theory for Creative Nonfiction, we're in our flash modules. So everything's all flash all the time right now, so I thought it would be appropriate to read 2 flash pieces. So this first one is forthcoming in Mom Egg Review, which is a cool magazine that's still in print, which is awesome. And it's a magazine about motherhood, broadly interpreted. So this is called My Mother Tells Me. My mother tells me I'm much smarter than she ever was, and more beautiful too. That my natural hair is too dark for my face, which she tells me is round and greasy like hers, but the oil will keep us looking young once we aren't. My mother tells me we're Mexican, Italian, olive-skinned, and shouldn't wear yellow, that we have childbearing hips. She tells me that we have big lips, the kinds people pay for, and good teeth, so those things are lucky, but our eyes are boring. Our eyes mean we're full of shit. My mother tells me the women in our family are accommodating down there, but her older sister, my aunt, a total cunt, would just say we take a big dick. When I say something hurts, she tells me it doesn't, or else tells me it isn't that bad. My mother tells me more than once she can't believe I graduated college, that she and my father were sure I'd drop out. She tells me she's embarrassed to have a daughter who's into astrology, watches reality TV, says like too much. My mother tells me she thinks I'll end up with a black man, but she couldn't have, that her father was angry when he found out about her older sister's boyfriend. When I'm in grad school, she tells me she thinks I'll end up with a professor, a much older man, and when I come out as bi, she tells me she thinks she could have been 2 once, that the thought had crossed her mind. After I stop going to church and praying to her God, she tells me my heart is hard without the Spirit, that she's praying for me. My mother tells me she hardly recognizes the person I've become. dry mouth these days, sorry. Staying hydrated. Okay. This last piece is called Dog Person. It's a dervish essay. I'll spare the long explanation of what that is and where that comes from, but it's a cool form. Most of it, pretty much the entirety of it, is one sentence. So it kind of propels quickly. So if it doesn't seem like there's ending punctuation, it's because there's not. Dog Person. There's a cat with one eye in a large dog crate in the middle of my spare bedroom. The one I let the mouse have, where it sustains on 4-year-old bags of great value lentils and red beans and boxes of cornmeal and oats that, despite my best intentions, I never unpacked when I moved in 2 years ago, thinking all those early months and into the later ones that I'd get the room sorted, put sheets on the guest bed I used to share with a husband in a state that isn't this one, unwrap the wooden desk where I thought I'd have written that memoir by now. But instead, collapsing stacks of books line the walls, and the bar cart I wish I could keep using as a bar cart, with its red and gold high and low balls and dangling wine glasses that used to clink when I walked by it in the dining room, in the heart of the house where it used to be able to live, is dusty and parked by the half bath I forget exists, behind a door I try not to open. But now there's a cat with one eye in a large dog crate in the middle of the room, and half her face is stitched up and oozing, and every time I come in to scoop shit from the paint roller tray I used as a litter box because I don't have cat things but was told to figure it out, or fill her food or water or wipe out the bottom of the crate after she wrecks it, she hisses because she hates me and hates the room as much as I hate me and also the room. But maybe mostly she fell for a trap and was told things would be okay, that when she came out the other side she would be fixed and freer than she had ever been before, but instead woke up like this, cavernous and still trapped. Maybe mostly she's just scared.
So we have 2 more readers this evening. I'm going to introduce Venita, who's then going to introduce Stephen. So my colleague Venita Blackburn is the author of the award-winning story collection Black Jesus and Other Superheroes, along with her second collection, How to Wrestle a Girl. Her debut novel, Dead in Long Beach, California, published January of 2024, is about the mania of grief, all of human history, and the lesbian assassin at the end of the world. Please join me in welcoming Venita.
Right, nice. Hello, hello. Sounds good. Okay, I have no banter for you because I've got to read 2 things as well. So we'll hop right in it. Love all my colleagues. Love you guys. Support you. We're going bowling soon. It's going to happen. Okay. So I'm going to go in reverse order, and I won't read all of my books as I usually do. I'm going to just read from the novel and my middle collection. But the novel is about all those things that Brynn read in the intro, but it's also about a woman who discovers her brother dead from suicide, but instead of telling anyone, she pretends to be him through his phone for a week. So that's sort of the frame of the story. But the story is told primarily through this kind of omniscient, hive mind, collective narrator that has access to the future, to the past, to a lot of elements of humanity that the main character would not. And also because the main character is so psychologically broken, that is why that voice takes over. And the voice uses these clinics in order to access memory for the main character. And so I'm going to read a bunch of excerpts of those clinics today. And whatever happens, happens. So, in the clinic for telling lies in order to survive pending death, enemies are varied and numerous. Enemies can be children, your own children, children of your children, dentists, wives, employers, presidents, boyfriends, parents, and taxi drivers. Enemies can be friends, close friends, rich friends with an inflated sense of self-worth measured out in taxable luxury goods. Enemies work against you at all times and charge a fee for their services. In the Clinic for Telling Lies in Order to Survive Pending Death, we study the things that survive the apocalypse: pretzels, infidelity, ingrown toenails, the need to climb things, trees, mountains, fences, and abandoned buildings, Porsches, tweed fabric, cavities, postpartum depression, vodka, clean baby smell, accidentally cruel dog breeding for aesthetic purposes, nuclear energy weapons, and Cheetos. In the Clinic for Telling Lies to Avoid Pending Death, there is a small quiz on duties of a spinster aunt that involve periodic monetary affection and amusement park attendance, and meeting women in the local community for clandestine sexual encounters that morph into tumultuous long-term relationships. In the Clinic for Telling Lies in Order to Survive Pending Death, we take classes on breathing techniques. The length of the breath is very important. 1 second too long can indicate sarcasm over thoughtfulness. 1 second too short and you seem to panic. Enemies eat panic. Those that pass the courses on telling lies in order to survive pending death graduate on to the physics of political warfare and step-parenting. In the Clinic for Telling Lies to Avoid Pending Death, there is a unit on living in good memories to dissociate from reality when we recall being 14 in the backseat of our father's Cadillac DeVille on the way to the Hollywood racetrack with our older brother in the front seat. Luther Vandross's So Amazing plays through the speakers. The seats are plush as a velvet sofa floating along the 105 freeway. Our father sings badly. Isn't it amazing? Then our brother sings badly. Love like this forever. There we are happy. There we are safe. And we are only there once. In the Clinic for Telling Lies to Avoid Pending Death, we are often bad mothers. As bad mothers, we instruct our children in the value of the truth, how often to spend it and how often to save it. The truth is something for private moments behind one's eyes and not for authority figures that might call Child Protective Services. As bad mothers, we are periodically kind and funny. We tell jokes and we make delicious junk food appear. Bath time is optional and cartoons are plentiful. When we are not kind or funny and are occasionally violent and steal from our children to support an assortment of vices, including muscle relaxers, Jack Daniels, low-quality boyfriends, and or the casino, we are instructive. Our children store up the images of our many shapes and learn how to behave for self-preservation. They lie to teachers and police. When they speak to us and we cannot tell their lies from the truth, we are proud and strike them hard for their skill. Our children are strong. Our children are cunning. Our children are dangerous, and our children live a long time if they survive us. In the Clinic for Telling Lies to Avoid Pending Death, we go on dates with beautiful women of notable success. The women are photographers, doulas, voice actors, cartoonists, professors, poets, former college athletes, and pet store managers. They are there to make us confess, to pull out our trauma and sully the promise of life unbothered by loneliness, abandonment, gambling addiction, and an inability to self-reflect. Their voices wash over us like salt. We want to cough up the sound of them. Our tongues go dry and watery all at once. We want to throw up. We work to remember that we are not in danger. We are on a date. We are not at war or losing a child in a crowded store or being poisoned by a rival assassin or watching the sun go supernova. We are on a date. We remember that people give us life. We remember that people are hard. We remember that without people, we are alone and there is nothing after that. In the Clinic for Telling Lies to Avoid Pending Death, we are at a breakfast table and we are 9 years old. There are scrambled eggs hot on a plate, sausage about to touch a small tide of gravy ebbing from a single biscuit that comes miraculously out of a can. Is it good? We are asked. We inhale. Yes, we say. Yes, it's good. Okay, that's the first one. Okay, now on to the season of the witch. So I'm going to read this one. It's called Halloween. And yeah, like I said, no banter, no nothing. We're just going to go hop right in it. All right. Esperanza and me saw a car following a girl while riding back from jiu-jitsu practice. We were on our bikes and took Central all the way back down to the neighborhood. It was a Honda. Dark green, like a rental, like something somebody picks out, like something nobody picks out for themselves, but got because they thought it looked normal. The girl was just a few years younger than us, probably, small and thin like an uncooked pretzel in purple pants and t-shirt. She was on her phone, looked nervous, and I could feel the pace in Esperanza's pedaling slow down, so I slowed down too. Central is usually a busy street, but not that time of day, late October, near sunset on a weekday. Everybody who should be home was home already. We passed the cemetery that butts up against the elementary school. One car passed, then no cars. Invisible birds gossiped about each other from the trees. The bike ride plus actual jujitsu practice was 3 hours of physical activity. Esperanza wanted to stop for now and laters, but I wanted a burrito. The car and the girl drifted farther away, and then the girl turned onto Caldwell. The car followed. Now and laters are the worst candy and will yank a filling out or a whole tooth, depending on the mouth we're talking about. Esperanza pronounced them more like annihilators, the way everybody else did. Noemi had been taking turns kicking our asses for weeks. We were not good, practically speaking. I was strong enough to hold my ground, make myself heavy and hard to turn, but against Noemi's skill, it meant nothing. Noemi was like a crocodile. She'd tuck her arms close to her body and smile like some mad ancient mini dinosaur just waiting for us to try something that would fail. Then she snapped. And in seconds, Esperanza would be colliding with the floor, or I'd have a shoulder joint about to dislodge. It hurt so bad, but was beautiful. Esperanza had bigger wheels than I, a whole bigger bike actually. Mine was made for kids or grown-ass men who thought they were kids and liked to fling themselves upside down just to feel something. The bigger wheels made her faster, so it was strange to be in the lead for once as we rode. That day, Noemi had jammed her finger on something unrelated to BJJ at all and couldn't participate. She just coached me and Esperanza on how to escape from front-facing chokes. I had to practice grabbing Esperanza by the throat over and over. Esperanza kept telling me to make it tighter, tighter, tighter. When I thought it was way too much and was about to let go, she said, "Okay, good." It wasn't cold yet. October was like that. The trees were giving up their color, but it wasn't like TV with the piles of leaves that dogs jumped in and the cut of an icy breeze. The air here could get humid and balmy, even if the stores wanted to sell us pumpkin-colored sweaters and brown leather boots. We rode home in our t-shirts, the short sleeves rolled up under our pits. To this day, I feel like perverts drive Hondas. The little girl had been out of sight for too long, and the car too. I wasn't afraid like Esperanza yet. It didn't occur to me that I should have been until I saw her lean forward on her bike and begin to pedal past me. Sometimes it's the witnessing of a horror story that makes us forget we're in one. She pedaled for the life of the little girl and our own. I pedaled just to keep up. Back then I had no imagination for the worst of us, those who take and stretch the tender parts of life to the point of breaking. I saw a play once as a kid about a detective bear that solved mysteries. I used to think about crime that way for a long time, like a child in a theater safely surrounded by adults who keep the danger far away on a stage. Criminals weren't actually people anymore. They were imposters playing a part, monsters inside of a human husk to hide their true selves, their buckled skin, hot dumpster breath, stained cotton balls for eyes, and vinegar sweat. It doesn't take long to realize that it isn't like that at all. We pedaled and pedaled for only seconds before we stopped. We stopped because the little girl was running towards us now. She'd come back from around the corner to the silent main street where there was nothing but our heartbeats and the complaints of birds in the air. I was ready to die. Not for that little girl, but for Esperanza, because Esperanza chewed her dangerous candy, walked into bruises day after day, and demanded that I try to squeeze the life from her just to test her worth. I knew as strong as we were, as fast as we were still very young, and in relation to whoever was in that Honda, probably very small and not at all like Noemi, made hard as a needle by the world. So I readied myself for death. We stopped and held our ground while the little girl made it to us and paused in between our bikes, looking over her shoulder as the car slowly approached. I wanted the car to careen into the curb and then a corpse stumble out of the passenger side, and a greasy alien with a mouth like a lamprey eel and arms long as my whole body to burst from the windshield. But villains never look the way they should. Threats are often surprising and unannounced, so it takes a lot of people to protect one another, especially little girls. The car sped off, and even though all of our eyes watched it go, we never saw the driver. Just like that, we were alone, the three of us. The day faded fast right before the gold streetlights lit up the sidewalk. We had the dust to ourselves and moved exhausted again, through time, as if the shapes of the night could be anything we wanted. Okay, round one. All right, that was easy, piece of cake, okay. All right, last up, Stephen Church wrote everything in the world. Okay, Stephen Church is the author of 6 books of creative nonfiction, most recently the collection of essays, I'm Just Getting to the Disturbing Part, on work, fear, and fatherhood, and the book-length essay, One with the Tiger. He also edited the anthology, The Spirit of Disruption, Selections from the Normal School, an amazing publication. Okay, the amazing Stephen Church.
Happy to be here. We've got books for sale afterward if you want some. I'm just going to read a couple of short essays. Let's see. Okay. This is very new. All right, this is called The Life of a Fox. When the global pandemic descended in the spring of 2020, my wife and I started taking a lot more walks together. We loved strolling down the mostly empty streets of our neighborhood, and soon enough we were covering miles of ground in a given day. It seemed like we were regularly spotting foxes, as if they'd collectively decided to emerge from the shadows to surprise and delight us. On one of those walks, as we passed a yard, I noticed a small fox statue placed near the house. I grabbed my wife's arm and whispered, "Oh, look, there's another fox." She was immediately excited and turned quickly to scan the yard for the animal. When she realized it was just yard art, she smacked me on the arm and laughed. A week later, she fell for the same joke again. So for Christmas, I bought her a tiny fox statue for our own yard. Lately, I've taken to moving the fox around our front yard every few days. Sometimes he's facing towards the street. Other times he's acting shy and looking away. He might be peeking around a tree or hidden in some shrubs. Once he climbed up on the roof. And I love to watch people and pets mistake him for a real fox. People point and laugh, dogs bark at it, and I feel as though I've given them a small gift, a small surprise amidst the routines of their day, a sign of something else in this world. Today I met our neighbor Susan. I often see her strolling around the neighborhood in the mornings wearing a big floppy hat, sometimes with a large wooden staff or a long walking stick. She strides purposefully, covering ground and acts like she's invested in this place, this little island of homes known as Browning Heights. There's nothing Heights-ish about our neighborhood. Barely a hill you can roll an egg down, and it's mostly middle-class folks despite the bougie sound of the name. Susan is a daily walker. She sticks to the same routes but occasionally mixes up the direction of her loops. I once frightened her by cranking up a power saw right as she came around a tall oleander hedge. But this morning, as I returned from my bike ride down by the river, she stopped and waited for me to pull in the driveway. I could see her in my rearview mirror standing there, so I assumed it must be important. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate, I've come to refer to him as Foxy, but the statue and that it moves around the yard, she pointed at my little fox statue sitting in the middle of the yard. "Oh yeah," I said, "he has a pretty active life." "Well, I just love him," she said. She said she enjoys trying to find him in the yard and looks forward to seeing him on her walks. I could tell that Foxy actually meant something to her, this cheap little fox statue that I bought online. She even named him, and even if I'd had a name for him, I wouldn't have told her because I wouldn't want to ruin that relationship. Let him be Foxy, or Red, or Fred, or whatever name. I told her instead about all the other people who interact with Foxy on any given day. Just the other day, I watched the gardeners teasing one of their coworkers who thought it was real. Susan thanked me again, and I thanked her, and she walked off down the block. And I thought again about how much joy or wonder is possible in those moments of genuine surprise and delight. I had a neighborhood mom tell me that when she takes her daughter for walks in the stroller, they make a game of finding the fox. Some days I think that fox and his story is the greatest thing I've ever written. Susan and I said our goodbyes, and she started off down the block before stopping again and turning back. "Oh, hey," she said, "did you see the real fox in the neighborhood?" I told her that I had seen it, but that it had been a while. During the pandemic, I said, I felt like I saw him all the time. Thanks. Okay, so this next piece is a new essay that just came out in Brevity, and it's called Night Owl. Thanks everybody for being here. This is always my favorite reading. I get to read with my friends and my heroes. Okay, so this is called Night Owl. He switched the headlights off and urged her up into the night air. "Go on, stand up," he said, pointing at the open moonroof. The car rolled slowly down a darkened country road somewhere deep in the Valley of Quakes. Soon enough, she would be too big for this. "Really?" the little girl asked, wide-eyed. He reassured his daughter that he had everything under control, even as he knew this wasn't true. Beyond the green light of the dashboard, the stars seemed to hang over the Cholame like ornaments on a tree, and gnarled valley oaks loomed over the road, their twisting leafless branches silhouetted in the October moonlight. The little girl climbed up on the middle console, and he grabbed a hold of her left leg as she gripped the edge of the open roof and slowly poked her head out. He let the car idle and roll slowly, tires crunching on the macadam. There wasn't another car in sight, just the distant porch lights of farmhouses. They'd come to this place to escape the light and noise of the city, a father and his daughter sharing a weekend together. They only get 2 each month, so he tries to make them memorable. "Faster," the girl commanded, and he obeyed until her hair was blowing back behind, her face lit up by the moon. She squealed with delight as he accelerated slowly, carefully, knowing he had to think about the stories she would tell her mother. She spread her arms out wide, fingertips wiggling above the road. He tightened his grip on her leg, wrapping his arm around her calf. He looked at the road ahead, and there, cruising just beneath the oak limbs, a shadow of something. A brushstroke fluttered across the night. It was getting closer, coming for them, and he didn't know how to stop it. The girl couldn't see it or didn't want to. Reaching up slowly, he curled his hand over the girl's belt and eased off the accelerator as the shadow got closer and closer still. At the last moment, it seemed, he yanked her down into the car. She screamed and tumbled into her seat, confused and frightened. He took his foot off the gas, slammed it down on the brake, and flipped on the headlights. He pointed at the windshield. In a flash, illuminated above them, wings spread almost as wide as the car, was the white underbelly of a giant barn owl. Its talons open as it stopped suddenly, frozen and frightened by the light, hovering for a half second over the car before flapping hard to recover, pulling up from its dive, wheeling left, and disappearing back into the night. He remembers the thwop, 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 thwop of its wings above the open moonroof, and the way his daughter looked at him, already telling this story, the one you're hearing now, the one about the owl and the darkness and her father trying to hold back the bird.